Hello, 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 and welcome. Happy New Year. We've got a new year. We're starting off with a boom, new hairdo, new backdrop. There's a whole lot new going on. And welcome. And I thank you for joining us today. We are back with Just Talking Business, where I'm a small business owner talking to small business owners. But today I think maybe a little bit larger than small business owner. We'll be talking to today. This lady comes to us all the way from California here to talk to us about the cannabis business, which is a very interesting thing considering I live in Florida and we are having some interesting things happening in this state in that business. Welcome. How are you, Autumn?
I'm good. Thank you for having me, Stephanie. I'm
Thank
excited.
you. Thank you for agreeing to come to join us today. Um, let's start with who are you and what do you do?
Sure. So my name is Autumn Shelton. I am the CFO and co-founder of Autumn Brands, which is a cannabis cultivator and brand in California.
Okay. Okay. When I first found out I was going to be interviewing you, I was pretty intrigued by what made you decide to get into this business. Cannabis is not necessarily a business that people wake up one day and go, I think I want to do this. What was the impetus for that?
Well, my then boss, now partner, he has owned the property that we are on for over 30 years. It was Cut Flowers. And so I worked for him during his cut flower business. But he'd gone through bankruptcy, a lot of competition with South America. And I got him back in the black and he saw what I could do there. We knew that cannabis was on the horizon to move from just being medically gray zone legal to regulated. It was going to be on the ballot again in 2016. So we said, why don't we make a transition and try a new crop? And so we did. It was very hard and we didn't talk about it. We didn't tell anybody. Helicopters went above. I mean, we did all the legal stuff that we were supposed to do during that Prop 215 medical marijuana days, but still it was a little iffy.
Dicey.
But we did. But of course, the bill passed in 2016, and it became regulated in 2018. And so we transitioned from being a not-for-profit business into a for-profit business,
Oh.
and have continued along that path and created the brand in 2018 as well.
This show is actually about the pivot plan. I'm very intrigued by how businesses are able to pivot. So it sounds like that was a huge turnover. If you could share a little bit about what that took. I mean, you're talking about shift of complete crops, complete way of operating. How does that work? And how long did it take you to do it?
Well, luckily, we were able to really utilize our same systems. So I think traditionally people think of cannabis in this outdoor, huge, ginormous plants. But we grow in greenhouses here in Carpinteria, and these like 3-liter pot plants. And when we did the math, we realized we could get the same amount of flower as we could in these small plants as we could in bigger plants, and we didn't get as much bud-rot. So we literally just changed over the cut flower Gerber daisy to cannabis.
Okay.
And my partner knew agriculture. He knew how the system should work in the greenhouses. And so we gave it a shot. Now, I'm going to be honest. It wasn't great weed in the very beginning. There was something different here. Weeds grow, but it doesn't grow well without a lot of like tender loving care and really knowledge of understanding how it all works. And so it definitely took us time to get there. We also in 2017 made a huge decision, which helps us really actually stand out today. But we decided to become 100% pesticide free. Okay. And that means we're not even spraying organic pesticides. So we are going above and beyond organic. And we really felt like you can wash your fruits and vegetables, but you can't wash your weed.
Right.
So why are we gonna inhale, heat up pesticides, even if they're organic, even if they're natural oils? And so we decided to stop buying pesticides, and we tried it. And we got to a point where, we were like, it was so overrun by pests. We go like, we have to spray. We have to do it. We have to, we can't. And our grower was like, just wait, just wait a moment. And so we did. We sat back, and sure enough, all the good pests came in, and these native ladybugs, which we didn't even know we had at that time, found their own way in, started populating, and ate their hearts out. And then threw it off the plant. And so then we knew we had something. Go ahead.
So, I mean, because that was one of my questions, like, what's plan B? So, as I shared with you right before, we went to Napa Valley and we had a chance to visit some of the vineyards. And of course, California, unfortunately, is experiencing wildfires. So, there's got to be some, I mean, even though you in a greenhouse, that's great. You have much more control environmentally. But, what's the plan B if something unexpected happens? That's your whole crop. Or is there a plan B, or you just kind of let your learning experience get you to where you need to be?
This entire experience has been plan B, plan C, and plan D. I mean, we're making history here. There is nothing written to be a cannabis industry. So
Okay.
every day, every month, we are pivoting towards something. You have to be open. You have to be okay. In 2017, we had fires here right in our backyard. My partner called me at 2 a.m. You have to come here. You have to come help me.
Right.
And at that point, it was cash business too. And so I had to come and collect all the cash.
Right.
We put as many plants as we could in a box truck, and we're hosing everything down because the flames are right next to us. You couldn't even see. So, things like that occur, regulations changing, and a moment's notice, you have to pivot. Understanding consumer behaviors, which has changed this entire time as well. We've rebranded 4 times.
Really?
since we started the brand in 2018, because it started very medical, and then we realized, no, this is more about health and wellness. So we changed to something that was more health and wellness focused, but then people didn't really understand what the abstract health and wellness symbol was. And so then we've changed again to being more very where we are located, which is the ocean and the mountains. And so our logo really represents that. And then people also got a little confused. So Autumn Brands is myself, Autumn, and then my 3 partners' last name is Brand. So we are Autumn and the Brands. But people see us as this big corporate entity or corporate business because it's called Autumn Brands. And we have companies near us that are much larger than we are. And they used to just have a name, and then they added the word brand later on. And I'm like, screw you, people. Like,
get away from my word. You can't use my word.
So we've kind of minimized the word brand a little bit, so people didn't really, overthink about it. But autumn means harvest, and people kind of associate it, more so with that. But yes, pivoting is a constant thing that's the only way you can survive in a new industry like this.
And it seems like California is definitely the state that's at the forefront of this. Whereas the many other states are coming along behind. So in terms of your distribution channel, I would assume it's e-commerce based on what I saw on your website.
No, because you can't do e-commerce really. That's the unfortunate thing, is you can only sell within your own state.
Really?
And then, so you can't go across state lines. I can't ship anything. Everything has to be hand delivered, and everything has to go through a retail license. So what we have on our website and what you see is that we have basically a plugin app that will allow consumers to go to a page that will take them to the different dispensaries across the states where they can order from. Or we have partnered locally in our local community in Santa Barbara with a licensed delivery service that will do it for us. So that's the only way that e-commerce really works, because we still can't do like the normal, buy on my website and then let me ship it to your house kind of thing.
Would that have to be federal law in order for
federal law
at that point?
Yes. Yes. So it would have to become federally legal. Rescheduling, which is still, we're hoping will happen this year, didn't happen last year. That would allow for medical marijuana to be able to be transferred across state lines. So that will open things up. It would be the same type of concept as like some of these companies that don't necessarily need a prescription, but you just need a doctor's recommendation. And so we could technically do that. So once that happens, that will allow us to not just be stuck in our own states. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you market? Like how do you, then that means you're marketing locally. What is your method of letting people know you're available?
So California is still very limited on the number of dispensaries they have, but we work with a distributor who then will sell to the different dispensaries throughout the state. Marketing is challenging. Yeah, you can't really market on Instagram. Nothing is for sale on our Instagram page. It's just very lifestyle focused. And actually the state, we fought hard, if we're going to talk regulations as well. Last year, there was a bill here called AB 1207, where they were trying to say that we could no longer show people in our advertising.
Really? Wow.
So, or
you're not smoking weed. You just want some people.
Well, I mean, that gets rid of a lifestyle ban. I can't go sit on a beach and show like my pre-rolls or my jar, like that would have been eliminated, which is just crazy. So, we're always having to pivot and change. And here where we are, we have there's a pretty solid, loud, not large, but loud anti-cannabis group of people that are constantly trying to take us down and shut down our farms, and which is also really, really hard to deal with.
Well, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that was one of the things that really stuck out in your bio. You talked a little bit about having to navigate, and I'll read it directly, navigating the uncharted waters of California's Prop 215 and the regulations California cannabis industry Prop 64. As I understand it, 215 is a medical marijuana allowance, and then the other one is usage. So we talked about, I'm in Miami, Florida. We had on our slate last year in November a push to legalize marijuana use up to a certain ounces, which is very similar to Prop 64. And we got the yeses, but not enough yeses. We were supposed to have 6%, ended up being 55. So it's very, 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 very close. So it feels like to me, for you to be successful in this business, you all have had to really be on top of your laws, your regulations, and advocates to make sure you're keeping yourselves alive. Talk to some of the folks in other states that are in this entrepreneurial space about how they can do that as well.
Yeah, I mean, being involved and advocating for this plant and for these businesses is so crucial. Here in California, I've done it both locally in our county. I've been at every one of the hearings and the meetings and really helped kind of build the ordinance here locally. For the last 2 years, I've been on the board of the California Cannabis Association, which is the largest lobbying association group for cannabis in California. And it's just, we've lost hundreds, if not over 1,000 businesses in California in the last couple of years because the market crashed in 2021.
Okay.
And so we've lost a lot of people being able to advocate for this plant. And so if in any state that you are in, it is so important that you get involved, whether you're donating funds or you're there at the table. And for me, being on the board of this association has been really critical for our business to make sure that our voice is always heard and what we need. And so like I mentioned that bill AB 1207, which was this package, it was a packaging and advertising bill. And it was also the packaging side where we couldn't have humans. Now we're family and woman-owned business. We have a picture of a woman's face on our jars. It's one of our logos, our icons. And that would have had to been taken off because they were trying to say it was attractive to children.
My. Yeah.
And if I wasn't on the board or I wasn't involved, I would not have been able to connect with the legislatures and the head of the cannabis department and show them how ridiculous this bill really was. And because it moved the needle. And my images of packaging made it to the governor. So your voice can be heard if you get involved. And it doesn't take a huge amount of time, but it is important to do something. So I do really recommend to everybody, because the early states that got involved in cannabis, which were Colorado, Oregon, Washington, California, we're all struggling because we were the early birds in this and
Right.
still trying to figure all it out.
Right.
Whereas these new states have come online and been able to kind of learn from our mistakes and not make them again. They're also smaller. I mean, California is such a beast of a state. It's hard to make everybody happy and figure out what the right path is. But
I'm glad you mentioned time, because I think a lot of folks, especially when they're small businesses, there's only so much time in a day and you only have so many hands and staff members. But it is pivotal, especially when you're dealing with an industry that's so new. And, let's face it, has been controversial when it comes to government and certain spaces in our country. So it's nice to hear you say it doesn't take a lot of time, but it's imperative.
yeah,
And I'm guessing in the state of Florida, we're really going to have to get behind that use, because I mean, it only makes sense. And we're like California, we got the same weather, pretty much.
And I'm pretty sure you have some really strict packaging rules in Florida. I think it's like black and white or something. Like you can't even have color, I think.
I've been told the marketing and advertising violations that people can receive. I was at a meeting once, and I will say I'm not an expert at this, but I was at a meeting once where they talked about there were some advertising agencies that got fined just for advertising cannabis. So I'm hoping some of that has released itself. I know there's some farming. There's been some conversations around farming in Florida as well, but it just hasn't. Other than the medicinal marijuana, it hasn't really moved. But I think it's closer. I mean, I am definitely optimistic after seeing the vote. It seems like it's closer. And a must. And I know some people who are actually investing in the business. Okay, so let's switch scripts a little bit and talk about, you mentioned it's family owned and women led. Let me go back. Let me ask this question. How did you become a partner? Like, if you were working for him at first, and how did that conversation come along?
Yes. So we're two families. So I was working for him as a CFO for the cut flower business, and it was very apparent that cut flowers were not going to be, even though we got them in the black, it was not going to be a long-term plan. And he had gotten approached to lease out some of the greenhouses to somebody else for cannabis, and the thought was maybe I would go and work for that company, but they really already had a finance person. And then he also realized his kids, he really wanted them to be able to come and join a family business at one point when they were done with college. And he figured that they would not be able to go towards that one either. So, when it became that realization, he came to me and he says, "Why don't we start something?" And I'm like, okay.
Nice.
So I spent 2 weeks drawing up a business plan, and then really looked at it. And then he said he wanted his kids also to be part of it once they graduated. And so I said, okay, let's do this. And my husband knew a lot about cannabis. He had sold cannabis pot when he was younger, and
you can say it now.
He understood, what it should look like, what it should smell like. He knew all the strains, so he came in and was able to really help us kind of
from the product,
product processing side of it all, and develop that side of it. And then he moved into sales for us later on. But we all just came with different unique skill sets, which has made our company and our partnership really strong. I think we don't step on each other's toes, but we really respect each other and challenge each other. And just keep each other on track. And it's been, and we all have the same exact core values of just really staying authentic to who we are and staying the course of what's really important to us, which is sustainability, health and wellness, really creating a product that is good for the consumer and not just be so we can make, zillions of dollars,
How did y'all come to that point? Was that something you put into your business plan as to who is going to be responsible for what, or you just all kind of had a handshake yeoman's agreement, or you kind of tripped into it? Like, how were you able to put together a partnership? And I mean, especially considering he used to be your boss. So
Yeah, it
what
was a transition, but it was smooth. It wasn't actually hard because I feel like even when he was my boss, we kind of worked together on a lot of stuff, and we'd already kind of built this really close relationship and friendship. And so we knew how to kind of really, yeah, how to work together. So a lot of it, was, yeah, I mean, we wore every hat. We just did whatever needed to get done. So no, there wasn't a written out kind of thing. It was, I mean, obviously I was the CFO and he was the CEO. But we just kind of, and he was the grower. I do not have a green thumb. You do not want me making any of those decisions. But I'm good at the
handle the
legals.
books. I handle the books.
But I'm good at the money. I'm good at the compliance. I'm good at the legal.
Okay.
I'm good at the business development. So, so it just kind of worked out. We just kind of did what, we were strongest in, and worked together and on whatever else needed to be done, and away we went. And then when his kids started here after college, they brought new information, new education, new ideas that were fresh and younger, which is really cool as well. So it just kind of, it's just kind of flowed and worked.
Okay. Good.
Yeah.
Good. So women led. Now, we talked a little just briefly about this. You have a little conversation before all this, about women led. And I thought that this was an industry that was probably male dominant, but you've sort of shared with me that it is not. Can you share a little bit more about, what the industry really looks like in terms of, the gender aspect and ownership, and how that's working, and how does that dynamic work in professional settings?
Yeah, I mean, there's still more men than there are women, but I feel like there's like a 60-40.
Okay.
And so, and honestly, like, I feel like I've received nothing but respect from the men that I've worked with. I think Hannah being more in the sales side, at the dispensary level, it's still, when it started, it was very speakeasy kind of thing. And it's not as much as it was, but it's still about who you know. And so there is kind of there's a lot of more males, I think, in those kind of levels. But, Hans, my partner, and the father of my other two partners, he could have just said, I'm going to start a company myself and you can all work for me. But he's somebody that really he saw what I could do, respected me as a woman, respected my brain, and, has uplifted me to do more, and respects everything that I do. And then his daughter as well, I think, which is really incredible. So to have the partnership in our own company ethos that really wants to uplift women, that's where it starts for us. And then we're going to surround ourselves with those kind of people as well. We've certainly had some master growers or very kind of egomaniac males come into our space, and we don't have time for them. And we don't work with those kind of personalities. We work with people that really want to uplift women. And because really, I mean, our plants are all females. This really is something about a health and wellness. We have the endocannabinoid system in our bodies. Cannabis, naturally, we have natural receptors for cannabis. And so this is something that I feel like very natural to the woman to really take charge and make decisions about. So the future of cannabis, I think, is going to be woman dominant, and we just got to get there.
I could see that. I mean, well, I will say I'm originally from the Bible Belt. So I would say maybe back in the day that might have been more of a challenge, but I see a new day. I see a new day. So what's the plan for the future? Where will you go from here?
So we have an exciting year ahead. Last year we collaborated with a reggae band, which was really cool. We came out with an intimate wellness line of products, which was also very fun, and my own kind of personal journey of self-care. So that was amazing. And then some other kind of additional pre-roll SKUs. this year, we are actually taking over the other part of the property that I mentioned earlier that was leased by somebody else, another cannabis company. They have now gone out of business, and we are now almost doubling in size. So that is daunting and exciting at the same time. And that's just going to really kind of help us build the brand out further and be able to offer more variety too. So that's going to be the big one for this year. And then we're just kind of,
when they went out of business, did you learn sort of what challenges they had, that so you don't repeat the same?
Well, we already knew what challenges. We knew that they had challenges all along. They also didn't have a brand, you know, and in today's California market, the wholesale price for cannabis is, I mean, you can't survive on it. So there's just, unless you have a brand that can really help carry the revenue, it's not really a sustainable market right now, because we still have way too much supply for the demand, or for the, I should say, not the demand, but the retail access for people to be able to get. We do not have enough retail access in California. So people are still buying illicitly, or, you know, they're just, or we have too many clustered in one area.
Right.
So California is still very much struggling to survive in the industry.
If somebody wanted to reach out to y'all to come over to Florida and teach us how to do this, would you come?
That would be a question.
You scratch too when we get this going. So tell us, are there any words of advice, yes, you could share with not just Florida, but all states, if they are embarking upon this? And you seem to kind of stay on top of what's happening in the different states. What would you say would be sort of a first act or push to really get people over the hump, to get to position themselves to have a business like yours?
If I'm being honest, I would say, don't get into cannabis. Not right.
Comes out here, news break.
I say that because, you know, like I said, California is struggling, and we are watching people go out of business every day. Wow. And unfortunately, I think the states that have limited licensing, I think, are going to be the ones that are going to be more successful, because rather than just letting businesses and operators figure it out, and you know, they're saying, this is how much supply we can have to meet the retail demand that we can provide. And so there's an equal measurement here, where in California, it's a shit show, and, you know, there's just too much. And the only way
to grow grows.
So everyone grows, and then someone goes out of business, and someone else is like, I can do this, so I'm gonna, you know, and now we're still in the same spot. So really, I mean, we need to eliminate some of the growers, some of the cultivation, because until we can get the retail access in place, until local municipalities actually get rid of their bans and allow it. So my recommendation is to, you know, don't just think that it's going to be a gold rush, because it's not. It might be for a year, and then it's going to come back down to reality. So, you know, where we really are able to survive this is I think two big reasons, is because all we did was literally change over the crop from cut flowers to cannabis. We didn't spend millions of dollars from the beginning to make a shiny object. We bought, instead of buying $200,000 blackout, we bought $5,000 blackout when we started. Right. And then as we grew and we got more, then we got the longer lasting system, right? And so, you know, go into it being frugal if you're going to do it. Go into it being prepared that your price per pound is going to be a third of what it is today and what you're going to get. Right. And that's what happened in California. So it dropped by 60%.
So automatically you've put all this money into something that you're never going to get back right away.
So, and then for us, there was a big boom with COVID in 2020. So everybody made a ton of money in 2020 that was in operations. But then it collapsed the next year. So if you didn't save your money and you took all that money and tried to then expand or whatever, those are all the people that are going out of business as well, because you didn't save. So make sure you save your money, because it's not always just going to keep going up, up, up. It's going to go like this. And especially when federal legalization happens, that's going to be a whole nother world of everything getting figured out. I mean,
then how do you grow? How do you make the decision, okay, I'm going to take this leap of faith when you probably need to be saving your money for the ebb and flow? How do you strategize that?
You grow where you can measure
What the return will be.
where you can measure the return. And so that's like for us, like right now we're about to expand. I tell you not to expand. We're about to expand. But we're doing it on the same property. We're doing it where everything, all the infrastructure is already in place. Like we've already done all the hard work. We're not trying to do something somewhere else. We're not trying to build any infrastructure. I mean, everything is pretty much just turn it back over, and we can get our money back in 6 months.
Okay.
So whereas a lot of these other companies came in, spent millions and millions of dollars on new infrastructure, you may not ever get that money back because the market may not be where it is today. So it's just being prepared that it's going to get a lot worse, and not, always getting better. And just know that it's also, you're going to have to pivot once federal legalization or rescheduling happens first, and then so on. So, it's exciting to be in this industry because we're making history. And it's a plant that helps people, and this is something that's always helped people. So, I mean, I'm so passionate and I love this plant, but it is hard. This is one of the hardest things you could possibly do or get into. And it is a long-term plan. It is not a short-term plan.
Right.
So it's just being prepared for that.
Very cool. Thank you so much. Before you leave, can you tell us how we can find you?
Yes. So Autumn Brands, you can find us at autumnbrands.com, or Instagram is autumnbrands_. Everyone gets their Instagram taken down because it's cannabis, so there's an underscore in it now.
That's
you can find me personally on LinkedIn, Autumn Shelton. If you ever have any questions, I'm happy to help.
Okay, thank you so much for joining us today. And we're going to boost this and share it with everybody because we think it's very important information. Thank you so much. So everybody, I want to thank you all for tuning in today. As I said, we're going to show this. We're streaming live now on Facebook, but you will find this on YouTube at Stephanie Creates TV. Also on Spotify, as well as Apple, listed as Just Talking Business. We want you to tune in. We want you to subscribe, like, and share. And please join us back here again for our next show, which may be live, but we will let you know. So thank you so much, and y'all have a great day.